All right, I am Kim Davidsson. I'm 46 years old now. I'm originally from Sweden and I currently live in Mexico. And I've been living here since 2007 permanently. I came here in 2002 to do my cave class and I absolutely fell in love with the caves. My story diving, I started diving in Sweden. I was always very fascinated about the water. Something drew me about water. And traveled a lot with my parents, snorkeled a lot, Yugoslavia, Mediterranean. And pre-Google, pre-everything, there was this lexicons that you could do, the books. And I was a little kid and always the diver fascinated me. And there was this pearl divers from Greece and whatnot. It's pretty cool because I went to Sweden 2 years ago for Christmas with my family. And my mom still has those books. So I pulled it out and I told him, because that page is still folded with the divers. So I showed him that, like, this is what Daddy used to look at when he was a kid. So there was always a fascination for me. I did my first summer job, 97, and 3 weeks work. I earned like $400 because it was for the government as a camp leader. And I had 400 bucks in my pocket, and I walk into the local supermarket and I'm like, I can buy candy or this or that. And then I saw a dive magazine and I'm like, yeah, maybe it's time to do my open water class. So 1997 I did my open water class, and yeah, it was kind of love at first sight, but not mega. It always felt a little bit weird, of course, diving. But there it started. Then I did my advanced open water, started working in that dive shop eventually, dive master more on the weekends, got more and more interested in technical diving, bought a set of doubles. I was that guy, had no clue, no training, really, and I had about 350 dives. This is Sweden, low vis, cold water, active diver. Did my dive master, started diving in Norway a little bit, and I worked at Pfizer at the time, so now I would be like 24 years. I dived for a few years, got more and more interested in wreck diving, and I was scrolling through the internet in the evening, in the nights, and I found that there was a Scandinavian dive center in Tulum called Cenote Dive Center. And I emailed them, and I got a picture back, old digital camera, but like Grand Cenote, a diver, crystal clear visibility. I'm like, what? Can water be that clear? And I said, I have to go check that out. Had saved up a little bit of money at the time. I was going to go to Thailand and backpack. I was kind of a savage back in the day, so lots of partying, and I'm like, probably not going to be the most productive trip. So I'm like, 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm going to go to Mexico, an exotic dive location. I'm going to get my full cave trainings, which leads into tech training. And I came in 2002 to do my full cave class with Robert Schmittler. And when I went back to work that Monday morning, I was like, I call it cave fever, like when you really get the bug, and I couldn't think about anything else. And I knew then that I would have to come back and do something about it. And here we are, awesome. 22 years later. Gear configuration that I like to dive with. I'm very practical. I'm very practical, and to tie back and to loop back a little bit, the way I look at it as far as a diver, the more environments you know how to dive in, the more equipment you know how to dive in, the more complete diver you are. So for me, it's all tools. It's tools to get use the right tool for the right job. Sometimes it's 100% correct to be in a single tank. Sometimes it should be in side mount. Sometimes it makes more sense to be in doubles back mount. You want to be in a rebreather. You want to be in a passive semi-closed rebreather. Sometimes you want to use DPVs, cameras, all of the above. So I dive in whatever I need to get the job done. Single tank, double, side mount, stage, multi-stage, mixed gases, cold water, icy water, warm water, board shorts, DPVs, rebreathers. So this is my philosophy about dive gear. What I prefer, I really love diving the Kiss Sidewinder personally, or a rebreather. It's the best of two worlds because it's like diving side mount, but it's a rebreather. So for cave diving, that's my favorite tool. But I just like diving in general, so it's like it can get very political, and I'm not very political. I'm very practical personally. I love cave diving. I love traveling and diving and doing trips with friends and stuff like that. But I really love cave diving. This is where I feel the most at home, and this is what I feel that I love. I'm not great in boats. I get seasick. I do enjoy the technicality of deep or mixed gas diving, but also 10-20 minutes bottom time and then hang for 2 hours. I'm like, is the juice worth the squeeze? You know, I kind of forget about how awesome the dive was by the time I'm back on the boat. Whereas I feel cave diving is you descend, you go, it's great from day one, or great from the first minute. So cave diving, all types of caves. I mean, obviously love Mexico because I live here. I do think it's the biggest, the best, the most pretty, the most diversified, but I love cave diving everywhere, and I've been diving in Florida, like the mines in Sweden, the mines in Finland, Balkan. So everywhere there's cave, I want to go visit. Still have a few things on my bucket list, of course. It's a big world. Places that stick out. Well, exploring is always, of course, fun. Big exploration projects, exploring, making connections. We did a dive yesterday that was amazing. It was cool. Yeah, Madagascar was cool. Madagascar, exploring in Madagascar was cool. And here. I have a few ones, but I typically would go like top 10 because it's hard to put one over the other. There are a few dives that sometimes it can be a small thing. It's a traditional site, but something specific happens on the dive, or you have an extraordinary great feeling about something. But of course there are a few sites that stick out. You know, the Blue Abyss in Mexico, the Rio Negro, Yab. Done some cool dives in Florida, or when you explore, played some very. We've lucked out a few times, or skill luck, but where we managed to explore and filming, documenting at the same time, finding crazy cool cave in a team of 3, 4, 5 divers, and stuff like that normally doesn't happen. Done some cool wreck diving too, which I also like, and then mines. It's a combination of wreck diving with the history and a little bit, you know, archaeological and cave diving. So it's that mix. I don't know if I answered your question or I made it more mucky. Not horror stories. I've done pretty hairy dives, I've done pretty hairy things, but it still always felt controlled in a way. No, I'm not that red. There are different types of divers, and I'm not that red flag diver, I would say. You know, I have a lot of friends with a lot of close calls, like a lot of close calls, right? And of course, if you survive a close call and you learn from it, you become a stronger diver, you have more stories to share, etc., etc. But it's also borderline where sometimes it's just more luck than skill that you actually survive, you know, because any one of those could be the last one. I, of course, have a very, very close call, which would have made a perfect accident analysis, and I can explain about that separately. But horror stories, in all honesty, I have some few funny stories too, happy stories, but horror stories is when you have to do recoveries and stuff like that, right? Because you know, the whole thing of searching what happened, CSI, contacting the family, explaining to a non-cave diver why their husband, son, daughter passed away, and then trying to deal with grieving parents and friends and family. This is never nice, So those are like horror stories. But it also gives a healthy perspective to what we're doing has real risk, And this is very easy not easy, but it can be easy to get complacent, or you get a little bit soft or a little bit tired in the end. And Murphy's a cave diver. That's when things gonna go wrong, right? So this is what I'm also allergic to, because I've seen the consequences of that oopsie, or I was just gonna, or didn't think about that, or that's me having to recover someone and making a phone call. It really sucks, So yeah. Yes, that's a good question, and it's a huge question. I think it's a lot to unpack, but I think in general, like the human species, we don't really live currently in balance with our environment. Like we overconsume. I'm gonna sound like some crazy guy, but we're kind of a plague for the planet. If you would think about it, the planet would be better off without human beings. Like we are these species that kind of screw everything up. And that doesn't mean that I want the humans to go away. But to answer your question, I think we absolutely fish too much. I think we should fish on the interest, meaning if we keep emptying the oceans, eventually there will be no fish. Whereas if we would stop fishing now, maybe the oceans would recover in a few years, and then you could fish on the excess, and then the oceans would always be full. So the fishing industry, it feels unnecessarily a lot. It feels like a lot of waste. Contamination, pollutions, of course, industries, river runoffs. So I think this is a big thing here in the area. Of course, it's the largest aquifer in the world, and with the corruption here and the building standards and the government that's not really in control, it's a little bit out of sight, out of mind. And if someone can get away with just drilling a hole and shitting into water, they'll maybe do it, but then they don't realize that everything is connected and the shit floats downstream. Someone else takes a shower and that. So yeah. So this is what I feel that we should reset our attitude and have more government control in a way, but actually more education and people being more responsible. I think this is what could save the world and the diving in the end. Well, obviously we are located in Playa del Carmen and in Tulum, and we do everything diving related. So not so much open water training, but we could of course organize that as far as the PADI open water course or SSI open water course. But anything, cavern diving, ABC fundamentals training, rebreather training, guiding, support, logistics, independent self-service, accommodation. We have 2 dive centers training all levels of cave, also instructor training. So if anyone is interested, shoot us an email or contact us. ProTec Dive Centers.